Let's talk about writing a synopsis for script coverage specifically. Now, what is a synopsis? A synopsis, well, if you're familiar with writing at all, you'll know that a synopsis is basically just squeezing down a story to its vital parts, basically taking a longer format and zipping all that story, cramming all that story into 1 or 2 pages or a few more pages depending on the format of the original work you're synopsizing. In our case, we're dealing usually with a screenplay between 90 and 120, 130 pages. And so our synopsis for script coverage is usually going to be between 1 to 2 to 3 pages. Some people do like a longer form synopsis in their script coverage. My company, we only provide script coverage up to 1, 2, 3 pages max because we believe in keeping the synopsis true to its nature, which is brevity. And that synopsis basically focuses on those major things, those major components of the screenplay itself, such as the major characters, the major beats, the turning points, the obstacles that the characters may find themselves conflicted with or up against, such as perhaps the antagonist, plot twists, turns like that, all those major, beats that are, to be found in a screenplay. Those are the ones we want to kind of distill down, and those are the only ones we include within a synopsis in general. So there are some kind of unifying factors, some unifying elements of script coverage synopses that we're going to go over real quick. And the first of those is, like I said, the length. Synopses for script coverage generally run between 1 and 2 pages, like I said. But another component is that they're written in the third person. The reason being is that script coverage in general is supposed to be as objective as possible. I mean, at least in the synopsis of the script coverage. Comments are a whole other ball of wax. Everyone does those differently. Agencies, producers, studios, script coverage companies, they all do their comments in their own way, whether it's subjective, objective, a blend of both. But for the most part, script coverage synopses are written in the third person, and they're designed to just really boost that objectivity, because when you're dealing with the beat by beat, the play by play of a story, most people just want that objectivity. They want those beats as objectively as possible, and they don't want a whole lot of editorializing in the synopsis. Another common element to script coverage synopses is that script coverage synopses generally introduce the characters using all caps for the first time that we see those characters in the synopsis, and then they return to title case for the rest of the synopsis anytime they appear. So let's take a look here at an example coverage from my company, Screenplay Readers. We've got very first line of the synopsis, Jerry, a screenwriter, and Barry, an award-winning actor. So this is the first time these two characters are showing up, right? The next time we're going to mention them is they're going to be in title case. They're going to be in just regular case. The reason is we want the reader of this coverage to be able to pick out who the characters are in this synopsis that they should be following. And if we cap everything, on one hand, it's information overload. If everything's emphasized, everything's all capped throughout, then nothing is emphasized, right? But if, on the other hand, we don't cap at all, then same effect. We don't know, the reader doesn't know who to follow, what characters are being introduced. Using all caps is a way to just say, hey, this is a new character that you should be tracking within this synopsis. Heads up, pay attention. And then we can return to title case for that character for every subsequent mention. So for example, we've got, like I said, Jerry and Barry and Juan, their introductions up here. And then we introduce Al here, heads up, new character Al. And then we're mentioning Jerry again, and Jerry and Jerry and Jerry and Jerry. And then Juan, and then Jerry there. And then here's a new character, Hermione, down here on paragraph 4. So that's the idea. You want to use all caps for intros, and then sentence or title case for the rest of their mentions throughout the synopsis in order to draw attention to the main characters and give your reader of the coverage the opportunity to really lock onto who's important, who they should be tracking throughout that synopsis. A couple of other quick mentions about writing character in your script coverage synopsis. One, you want to keep the descriptions of your characters brief as possible. Just give the reader the idea, a visual picture of what that character is all about. You don't have to go into too much detail because, again, that defeats the purpose of the short form of the synopsis. And two, you want to just use one name for every character. So, for example, if Jerry in this script also goes by Dr. Jer or Jermeister or, his last name, whatever that may be, you don't want to lard up or confuse his name throughout the synopsis by using all those different names. Stick to one name maximum so you don't confuse the reader of the synopsis. And finally, another technical note before we get into the meat and potatoes of writing the synopsis itself. You want to generally keep your paragraphs broken up into beats that make sense. So basically, let's take a look here. Like Jerry, a screenwriter, and Barry, an award-winning actor, flee for their lives in the Mexican desert, chased by a Mexican drug lord and his armed men. And then we go straight to flashback to the beginning. We learn that down on his luck screenwriter Jerry has messed up his big chance, and he feels so low he tries to kill himself. So each one of those feels like a beat, and so we want to space them out into their own paragraphs. The reason being, we want to make it as easy as possible, again, for that reader reading the synopsis to understand, to visualize, to see what's going on within this story. We want to make it as simple and as brief as possible, and breaking up your paragraphs is way better than having line after line, paragraph after paragraph, huge blocks of text wherein the reader of the synopsis has to kind of decipher for himself or herself where those beats are actually happening. So breaking up your paragraphs goes a long way psychologically as far as readability goes in helping that reader get into the synopsis, understand the synopsis as quickly and as easily as possible.